Hello and welcome to the Home Assistant Podcast. My name is Phil. Joining me as usual, I've got Rohan with me. Hey Rohan, how you going?
Hey, good. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Little special episode, just me and you today.
That's right.
As usual, this episode of the Home Assistant Podcast is sponsored by Home Assistant Cloud by Nabu Casa. Easily access your local Home Assistant instance remotely for a small monthly fee that supports the Home Assistant, ESP Home, Zapo.js, and a whole bunch of other projects. Configuration is done via the user interface, so no fiddling with router settings, SSL certificates, or any YAML. Rohan, we had a little trip together. It's been almost 8 years of doing this podcast. I found out, and I finally got to see you in person. We met each other at CES in January. Right. It was fantastic.
That's right.
We had the best of intentions to try and do a live episode. In fact, I remember we're actually in my hotel room trying to set up the gear. Apparently, there's a little bit of a difference doing a podcast, on the other side of the planet as to trying to do just a live stream in one room. A few technical issues. And also, we're actually really busy at CES, which we'll get to in a minute. But no, Rohan, here we are back in our respective homes on the other side of the world.
That's right.
Doing our breakdown. Apologies we didn't get content again. Out. Yeah. Apologies we didn't get any content out that we'd like to. We are here today to deliver on that, our findings from CES and some of the content that we're going to be producing. But Rohan, it was fantastic to meet you finally in person.
Yeah, likewise.
Had a lot of fun. But it wasn't just you I got to meet. Nabu Casa, the whole kit and caboodle was there. Got to meet Frank, Paulus, Madalena. Right. Was absolutely fantastic to just meet everyone in person, hang out.
Miranda, Andy, everybody. There was quite a few folks from Nabu Casa there, and a lot of creators too, which was really cool. So a lot of our peers on YouTube and so on, right? Like on whatever various form factors. Huge shout out to Richard Gunther though. Richard definitely hooked us up with a bunch of different events and stuff like that. That because this was Phil and my first time going, we didn't really know what to do or what to expect or anything like that. Richard kind of hooked us up with a bunch of stuff there. But we got to meet a lot of the cool creators that we watch ourselves and hopefully you watch as well. There's a couple of fun nights and, hanging out and chatting about technology and just hanging out and having a couple of drinks and that kind of thing too. Right. So, huge shout out to everybody that came out and thank you for hanging out with us and then letting us hang out with you.
Yeah. I think my voice is still recovering. I know I had the air issue with my voice. Didn't get to do much recording myself. I was more designated cameraman and recording man while you did the most of the talking. But it was a very productive week, I think. So we were there. CES officially kicked off on, I'm going to say Tuesday. No, or is it Wednesday?
Yes.
I think it's Tuesday.
It was Tuesday.
So CS officially kicked off on a Tuesday, but because of the podcast, we were able to get in a couple of days early as part of the media. We were there for the media days. Saw some pretty cool stuff from there. So, Rohan, what was, I guess, out of everything you saw at CES, what was your favorite thing that you saw on the show floor or even at a media event?
The media event was fine. I mean, there was a couple of different, there's a few different concepts there. Some of the stuff, one of the things is CES, and by the time this comes out, I'm sure you've heard this 100 times. It was like just washing with AI, right? Everybody and their dog has something AI spice rack, AI. I don't know. There's like 15 different things that are, it's right. Which is like, there are very, very, very good applications for AI. And then there's some of that kind of stuff, which is like, maybe somebody sees it. I don't. So there was definitely a lot of that kind of stuff. But some of the stuff I liked, though, we met a company called DoublePoint at the media day originally. And then we hung out with them one of the other days and just kind of got an idea got to see what their technology does and so on. So it's gesture based controls for your computer and more, right? And it's a little bit of foreshadowing there. What's cool is a lot of gesture stuff uses specific, gloves or that kind of thing, where or some kind of camera recognition to say, okay, you've stuck out your hand and you've done something with that. This just uses your Apple Watch or Samsung Galaxy Watch or whatever you're wearing. And based on that, it can actually start doing gesture stuff. So they have a product called, I want to say it's called Wow Mouse. Basically you install it on your watch for free. It shows up as a Bluetooth mouse. So you don't have to go install software on your computer. You just install it on your for your watch. And now you're starting to use your hands to say, hey, let me, move my mouse around, click or double click or right click or something like that. And just through the week, we had to kind of decompress afterwards and stuff. As I've been talking to people, I mentioned that to a couple of people because Phil asked, I got that exact same question from quite a few folks. What was the coolest thing I saw? And it was this. And the cool thing is this software is free.
Yeah.
Right. And they make money from licensing and a lot of that kind of other stuff. So to you, it's actually free. Now, I've always been a believer of if it's free, then you're the product. But I didn't get that vibe from these kind of folks. And I want to say they're from Finland. I think the company is based out of Finland. So I didn't get that vibe of like they're trying to collect your data or anything like that. I haven't deep dived into it or anything like that, but in that brief conversation that we had with them, I didn't get that vibe, which I really liked. Now the cool thing is they saw our badges that say Home Assistant Podcast. And Phil, I mean, why don't you explain it? Because it happened to you, not to me. I was busy looking at something else.
Yeah. So I was literally just walking the media floor, ran into Richard, who we just mentioned before, and then someone saw that. Oh, hang on, your Home Assistant podcast. We actually running our app using a Home Assistant Green. Our demo is using Home Assistant, and they had a demo set up where you would be able to use you essentially like a magician. You would point at a light in the room, tap your fingers while having the wristwatch connect to your wrist, and using Rohan, you'll know the technology Ultra or something. What is it?
UWB ultra wideband. I don't actually know if they were using ultra wideband at that point. I think that's one of the things that they want to get into, but I don't think they've gotten there yet. But.
I don't know what they're using, but it is magic. They know what I'm pointing at in a room. There's no, having to configure a room or anything like that. It just it somehow knows, and you click with your fingers, and you can then control the lights.
Yeah, I think what it is because the watch knows where in space you are and what direction you're pointing and so on and so forth, right? So between compass and accelerometer, gyro, like between all of those kind of different technologies, it can kind of say, okay, you are pointing exactly here kind of thing, right? And it's like we have something set up to say, okay, well, over here, there's a lamp, right? And then based on that, you can like select into it and then change the color and change the brightness and so on and so forth, right? And turn it off or whatever that is. So there's a lot of cool stuff there. And the only again, and this is typical CES, is just because everybody's proliferating RF. The demo they had to get pretty close to the laptop, and but when we did see it before, it was working. And Phil, I mean, you were playing a game with using the Wow Mouse side of it, right? Using the computer-based game kind of deal. Now, this one, to be fair, this wasn't the demo we saw wasn't fully integrated into Home Assistant, right? It was a Python script with Zigbee to MQTT that was running in the background. So it had a laptop with a Zigbee stick attached to it, but it worked. It was cool. It worked. The person showing it to us, R2, was moving his hand around and just with gestures, changing the color, changing the brightness, all of that stuff. So I thought that was super, super cool.
And
Phil,
the
what
game,
about
like
yourself?
I didn't have to like do any training or anything like that. Like it was just literally put the wristwatch on my wrist
And
and
point.
point at the TV, and sure enough, there I was able to control it, right? And I didn't have to train it to know when my fingers were being touching or anything. It just
Yeah.
was all good to go. Um,
Yeah. I definitely
so
thought that was even through CES, I thought that was because a lot of the stuff that like we'll get into vacuums and stuff like that. Um, but it's building on other stuff that kind of existed, right? I thought to me this one definitely stood out as the most interesting one, just because it's a little different. It's a different application of gesture-based controls, and the fact that they got really excited when they saw Home Assistant and the Home
yeah,
Assistant podcast. I think that was kind of neat to me. So one of the things we're trying to do at CES too is kind of keep it relevant to home automation and wherever possible to Home Assistant specifically. And I definitely got that vibe from these guys. Again, it's generic software, but a specific application of the software that they were playing with. I don't think there's any official Home Assistant things right now, but it was definitely very cool to see them build this thing and say, "Hey, this is a potential use case for that software." So I was very impressed by it.
nice. And that was my favorite one too. So thank you for stealing
Oh,
my thunder on
perfect.
that one.
Yeah, love it. I love it. Let's talk about some of the other stuff. Some of the other stuff we saw as we kind of went into the floor. Just kind of progressing from that event onwards. I mean, we went to a couple of media showcases. TCL had a media release event. I don't know. I thought that the event itself was like maybe 4 out of 10. And that's really being generous there. But I did a couple of things that, really only one thing that we picked up on. One thing for me that was non-Home Assistant that I picked up on is they have a phone. One, I didn't know TCL made phones.
I had no idea. No idea.
But I also don't really follow the cell phone space, right? I mean, I've had an iPhone for the last, I don't know how many years, at least decade,
Yep.
right? And whatever. But they have a phone with a little button that changes it from like an e-paper screen to a regular screen. So it goes from like matte to glossy and so on and so forth. I thought that was kind of cool. But that's nothing to do with Home Assistant. I just thought that was like kind of fun. But Phil, you kind of picked up on the one Google TV integration there.
Yeah. So it looks like Google have announced a new integration or a new kind of interface for their Google TV around the smart home. Unfortunately, it was all under embargo. We weren't allowed to take any videos of it in action or anything like that unless you were really into unless you're invited media essentially. But I think and I really only care about the home assistant side of things, but it looks like with Google TV potentially now or when they release it, they're going to have like a home dashboard that can be on a TV screen. So anything that can integrate with Google Home can then be displayed on that dashboard, I'm guessing. Cool thing about it here is that I guess Home Assistant then becomes a way for you to then push that data into Google Home. I assume it can run that way. So therefore, you could have some obscure sensor that's doing a temperature on your lawn or something, right? And then have that displayed on your Google TV dashboard, which is cool. If you're in that ecosystem, of course.
Yeah, it's almost like having a non-touch capable Google hub, right?
Yeah.
Like, but you've got a screen, but you can't touch it, and it's like, I don't know, like 60, 80, whatever inches wide, right? It's but it's there anyways. And they will have the voice capabilities, like the Google Voice capabilities in there as well. And I don't think that's brand new. I think that's been around in TVs for a while. I know some of them you got to press a button and stuff like that, but this is natively. You don't need to. Basically, it just saves you from having one more Google Home around the house.
Exactly. And I think something they're trying to do was as you walk up to a TV, it would then change. Like if the TV is like a frame TV, right, where it's got artwork, and you walk up to the TV, it'll artwork will disappear, and then like that dashboard will come up. Once again,
Correct.
depending on your hardware and stuff. So,
But the only thing is, it was weird that they announced it. They talked about it at the media launch. They talked about it in the booth, and you could actually go in and quote unquote experience it. It looked very scripted, very guided.
oh yeah, see, they wouldn't let
So
us.
that
And
made me a little, yeah. And the fact that they were like, "Hey, no pictures, no cameras, or any of that." All of the TCL booth was pretty open, except this within their like space was an enclosed room with like slightly tinted walls, slightly tinted windows, and stuff like that. And it's like, so the skeptic in me screams a little bit of smoke and mirrors in there.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's clearly something that Google's, it's not brand new to Google or anything like that. So I don't think that it's, going to not release. I just think today at this moment, it's a little bit of smoke and mirrors while they get their, kinks worked out and stuff like that.
Yeah,
right.
definitely.
But no obvious red flags, but a little bit of one, I guess. Yeah. So, what else did we see? Let's see.
And then I think it was just walking around the show floor. I think we were just randomly going in the international section. We ran into AOTech, which is in the European sort of side of things. I was really impressed with Shelley's booth. Shelley had a massive booth there with all their products on sale. We got to meet a few of the people at Shelley on the day there, and they were actually really friendly, really nice and open. Yeah. I, as an Australian, liked to see that there were so many products that are not compatible in North America that were only compatible in Australia. I think that was like the one booth.
Sounds like a bit of jealousy there, but yeah, sure.
Yeah. Everything else being North American focused. But yes, that was really cool to see a whole bunch of, like, Shelley's have, I couldn't believe how many products they had.
There's a ton.
Yeah, and they've got even more coming out. I really also liked seeing, just while talking about walking around CES in general, there was a few places where you would have like the Google Home compatible with Amazon Echo person, and then Home Assistant would be prominent. I think SwitchBot, had Home Assistant up in lights. Like, it was cool to see the Home Assistant logo. And of course, we ran into like a few booths running Home Assistant Green for their demos as well. It was just cool to see Home Assistant so embedded everywhere.
Yeah, 100%. And even like, again, we released a short on this a little earlier, but Linkshura was a company. They do like e-paper based buttons, right? Smart buttons that work with Matter, work with Zigbee and Wi-Fi, I want to say.
Yes.
If I remember correctly. They have two different models, a newer one and a slightly older one. And, those kind of things are the same thing, right? Again, they work with Home Assistant. I think one of the things I liked about it is it doesn't necessarily specifically need to have Home Assistant either. Obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, you almost definitely have Home Assistant running, so that's probably where you'd want it to go. But if you wanted to use it just as a straight Zigbee remote to control a device, you could definitely do that too. I think they have a bunch of their own integrations that of people that they integrate with. And you could totally use that. So that's pretty nice. So those guys I thought was, again, I thought was kind of, I don't want to say impressive because it's a button, but I like the application of what they've used. And I like the fact that it is, they have a Matter-based one.
Right? I think it's the Matter one is coming out in Q2 from memory.
Yeah. But what was weird, I thought, and as Phil and I walked around the floor, as we were interviewing a lot of folks or talking to a lot of folks, even casually, we'd be like, hey, like, what's your stance on Matter? For stuff that is supported as of like Matter 1.4 kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where are you going with this? Is Matter something you want to integrate with? Or do you already today? And a couple of people were like, is that something people care about? Do you want that local control and things like that? So that was slightly surprising to me to hear that. I mean, maybe we're just enclosed in our own little bubble where, and listen, I'll be the first to say Matter is not there yet. Matter has a ton of issues. But to me, at least from a product perspective, you want to build that in there, and then when it comes, it's just a matter of saying, okay, let's just turn it on, right? Or just throw the hardware in there that you need if there's a hardware requirement in your product. Okay, throw it in there, and then as you need it, it's going to be there. And remember, it matters at the application level, right? So for, again, things like thread or stuff like that, if you need a hardware, throw it in there, right? And then as the standard evolves and as it gets better, or as there's a better use case for it, then just push the software update. Because until then, your device is cloud connected anyway, so you can easily push a software update to it. And we found a lot of folks who are also like, hey, yeah, we're going to support Matter. And Phil and I always ask the question of, okay, you're going to support Matter. So does that mean I'm just going to get a software update? Or does that mean I need to buy a new, I don't know, whatever device, $1,000 device or whatever it is? And they're like, oh, no, you'll need to buy a new one. And which I just thought was really silly. I'm like, you're at CES, you're releasing a brand new product. Again, Matter's not there yet, but it's kind of headed in that direction, and you have plans for a Matter version of this hardware. Why wouldn't you do it? Why would you just put the hardware in there and say, hey, Matter coming soon, it's just a software upgrade?
Right? So I think that was even one of like a random robot lawnmower company we came across. We sort of asked, oh yeah, can we control this locally? How do we get that? Oh no, that's all locked down. That's proprietary. That API is proprietary. We're not letting you access that.
Yeah, it was. Which, you know what? Again, as funny as it was to hear that, I like, because usually people beat around the bush for that answer, and this person was just like, nope, no plans, and don't want to do that.
Yeah, don't want to do that.
And I appreciated the honesty and what have you, but it was just funny to hear just the direct like, nah, we're not interested.
Yeah,
right. And again, talking about Matter to that person, they're like, yeah, we might release it, but eventually. And I was like, yeah, but again, new hardware. And I was like, okay, so now I have to buy. Let's face it, a robot lawnmower is not cheap, right? No. I don't know how much this one was priced at, but it would have been maybe $1,500, maybe $1,200. I don't know, $1,000 at least. Let's call it. So you want me to spend an extra $1,000 once I buy this hardware, if I want Matter, to go buy another piece of the same device that does the exact same thing that I have today? So that didn't make sense to me. I don't think we got any footage of that device or the company that just because, again, we were just in talking to them, it was so far away from the home assistant ethos that we didn't even feel like it was fit for the show. So
something we didn't film, and I was just thinking now, just a little tangent. I know we're talking about what our favorite things were at CES, but a number two, I'd have to say, and I think it might have been alarm.com or Swan. I'm pretty sure it was alarm.com. They had their new security cameras set up, and I think when they stepped into a zone, it would sort of have AI on board. It would say, hey, this person's you there in gray pants. I see you on the camera. I'm going to raise an alarm or whatever. That was fine. It was a bit gimmicky for me, I get it. But what was really cool was the gentleman that was demoing it then goes, oh, well, watch this, right? He then fires up his phone and he then deploys a drone at their office live watching, and they had a drone just go out and on patrol around the office car park based on an event that was occurring. So that was cool to see, all live.
The light itself was fine. I don't know. It was okay. It was a camera and then light, and the light would flash red and blue, like police colors, that kind of thing. And then they had the message was cool. And like Phil said, it was like, hey, you wearing a black shirt and this pants, whatever, baseball cap. I know you're here and get off my lawn, essentially, right? And you can actually tune the aggressiveness, which is really nice. So we were playing with that a little bit with the alarm.com rep that was there, and we were like, we made it nicer, and then we made it a little more mean, it was, I don't know, it was at least fun to play with, but it seemed like a cool product. But again, it didn't integrate outside of alarm.com. which is funny because I want to say Alarm.com is part of the Z-Wave Alliance or maybe Zigbee Alliance. I want to say the Z-Wave
I
Alliance.
thought they were. Yeah, because they have like Z-Wave sensors in America, I believe.
I think so. Right. So
similar to how Ring also have Z-Wave sensors too, if you're in America.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's keep it going. What else we got? We've got so just in terms of like smart houses and packaged homes kind of thing. We talked to a couple of folks around that. AC Future and House.me. I think AC Future impressed me more than I thought it would. Again, the price point is definitely a luxury item. So they make RVs or camper vans, whatever you want to call them, recreational vehicles, / trailers / like basically homes that, I don't know, they get delivered on a truck and you plop it down on your property and off you go. Again, AI was the theme of the show. Before I kind of give my opinion, Phil, I want to know what you thought of AC Future's whole use of AI. They have an LLM embedded. What do you think? Or explain it, I guess, and then what do you think?
So my understanding, having the LLM, the master of the house, essentially, very, very futuristic. I am still skeptical on, we're at CES, we're at a demo. The price point is pretty high. I'm still a bit skeptical on how this is going to act in the real world. But maybe that's not warranted.
Yeah, and I think what I was impressed at is that, again, it is a local LLM because, again, if you're going camping, there's a good chance you don't have internet, or maybe you don't want internet. Just a disconnect kind of thing. And the price point, I think they said, was starting at about $300K US. Which, I mean, look at the house pricing here. That seems like a steal sometimes, right? At least for us here in Toronto. But again, that doesn't include the property or anything like that, right? So I thought the design was nice, but they're also, again, what impressed me was when we asked the question of how open is this home, right? Because I was expecting them to, kind of give us that same answer as one of those lawnmower people, which would be like, nope, proprietary and get out. But no, it can ingest in from, whatever system, including Home Assistant. And then it can also, they also have both an inbound API and an outbound API, right? So you can kind of say, okay, feed me data or I will feed you data. And their plan is to make that open. Again, just may or may not change. We don't know. It's not it's not selling today or anything like that. I think they're doing pre-orders right now. But I thought that was kind of neat. I mean, we got a pretty in-depth demo of the LLM and how it worked and stuff like that. And I don't know, it's an LLM, it seemed fine. Voice assistant kind of deal. But so I thought I was pleasantly surprised at their wanting to be open. If that makes sense, right? We did speak to one of their, I'm not sure exactly what his title was, but he seemed like lead architect. He was definitely technical. So he seemed like that's something that they wanted to focus on.
I think the openness, or the willingness to be open, even, we spoke to the co-CEOs of their company, like they were very happy to talk to Home Assistant, or for us, being there about the Home Assistant podcast. So that's always a promising sign, right?
And we, even before we started interviewing them, I told them, like, listen, this is what I'm going to press you on, right? And they were like, okay. All right, cool. And I did press them on, being open and wanting to do that kind of thing, and they were fine with it. So we'll post, we'll release a separate video on on those folks as well.
Yeah.
And what we talked about and stuff like that. And there was another one, House.me. I want to say that they were, the house looked pretty cool, right? It was, again, one of those portable, they'll drop it off on a truck kind of houses, pre-built, whatever. I don't know, it looked really neat, and it looked like they had full HomeKit control and stuff like that. So I thought that was good too. Yeah. We didn't get a chance to interview them or anything like that. We spoke to them briefly. And no, did we get a chance to interview them? I actually don't remember. No, I don't think we did. Yeah, so we didn't get a chance to interview them, but we did speak to them briefly, and it sounded like, again, same kind of deal, because they wanted to do the stuff like HomeKit. That means you can take that and, if you have an internet connection there, plop it into your Home Assistant instance, and then off you go, right? And you can kind of control it from anywhere, or just natively use HomeKit if that's what you do. That's cool too.
So, Rohan, I think our goal is, like, we did a whole bunch of filming at CES, and the audio's, it's pretty noisy at CES, so audio is probably not the best, but we'll try and clean it up. I think our goal is to then push out a whole bunch of these companies that we spoke to and the interviews onto our YouTube channel, and of course into our Patreon feed first, as quick as we can. But we did take a focus of always relating it back to Home Assistant. There's no point in us going as the Home Assistant podcast to CES to just talk about anything else that you can get on another YouTube channel. And I think that was, I think that worked very well in our advantage.
For sure.
Things like AC Future, right? Like, we went in as we're going to talk. We wanted to know about this from an open source Home Assistant perspective, right? And they were more than happy to talk about that. We had another company, which I was a bit surprised on, Yabo. They had some really cool lawn mowers and snow blowers, and we spoke to like one of the founders, and he was so excited to talk about technical side of the product and the Home Assistant, trying to integrate it into Home Assistant and where they want to go with that. There's a lot of surprising and cool conversations to have, and of course you've got your standard let's go talk to Acquire and see what products they've got, and same with I think the fancy robot vacuums with arms was a new thing this year.
Why don't we talk about robot vacuums?
I mean,
what was your thought?
What can I say? They had arms. They can climb
a couple of
very small stairs, very, very small stairs. They can't. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. So there was, and Roborock has a vacuum cleaner that they're coming out with. It's the Soros S70, I want to say, maybe. Also, whoever names robot vacuums and brands them, we need to have a serious discussion. Like, you guys need to stop with the just sentence long words. It's just words at some point. Plus, Max Pro, whatever, right? So Dreamy and Roborock both came out with robot vacuums, allegedly independent of each other, with arms in them. I don't know. What are your thoughts? I'm excited, and I think it's cool, but I don't know. What are your thoughts, Phil?
There used to be a TV show called Robot Wars, I think it was. The late Grant Imahara from Mythbusters was a host, I want to say, or a contestant on that show. And my first thought when I saw these things was just it's from that TV show, right? I could just see them, trying to go around attacking things, bumping into walls. I get the use case. I think they're too limited though, right? Like, I think once again at CES we had controlled environments where socks or light objects were put on the ground. I don't think they're moving my children's toys at balls or are not light objects, right?
Yeah,
and that's where I want it. Yeah, like, it's literally going to put a sock in a basket in a a corner, right? But that's not going to help, move the shoes that are in the way or anything heavy or awkward. It's not going to be able to handle that.
Yeah, and I mean, hopefully it will. But I mean, I know between the two of them, what you're describing actually, Phil, is just on Roborock, because Dreamy said what their device would do is it'd pick it up. So let's say there's a sock on the floor, you would pick up the sock, clean under the sock, and then put the sock right back where it was.
Right, yeah.
Lost opportunity right there, right? And I'm like, well, you could just help me tidy as well, which, to be fair, Roborock on their side does, right? I know just recently, like just having listened to a lot on robot vacuums and stuff like that from various other creators, Dreamy typically seems to be a very good choice. So maybe they'll come up with that. I know, like Phil, you were talking about the stairs, like the really tiny stairs. They did say that was that there's feedback that they got from another show where they had kind of done a soft launch of this kind of this Dreamy device, and they had the feedback they got was, hey, this is too low. So then they doubled it, so it's not a step. It's not a stair, but it's like, maybe if you have, I want to say this at 8 centimeters. So maybe if you have like a transition strip or something like that, or you're going from like hardwood floor to like really high pile carpet or something like that, where it needs a little bit of a boost, or there's just like a giant, I don't know, maybe like a tape, big power cord that's taped down to your floor or something like that, that it can hop over. It can do that. So, which, sure, cool. I mean, listen, at some point, even the newer vacuum cleaners and stuff are really good, but at the same time, they still get caught in like a phone charger cable or something like that, right? It's, I mean, mine's not that old, and mine's still, my X1, Dbot X1 still gets caught and stuff like that. But I mean, those guys were there too. There was Narwhal. Narwhal was there with their new vacuums. Ecovacs was there with their new vacuums. There's a couple other vendors too, and I think the big thing was there was a lot around just better cleaning power, detangling of hair and stuff like that. But Roborock and Dreamy, I think, were the only two that we saw, at least, that had a detachable arm that comes out onto it. So
I guess that's where, like, then it just becomes another iPhone launch, right? Like, you get a slightly bigger camera, some more storage space, and a bigger price point, right? And I think, Roborock and Dreamy were trying to get away from that. I do want to ask you, though, what did you think of the SwitchBot robot?
I was just going to get to that. So I don't know. SwitchBot, I'm going to say I thought it was, so SwitchBot released a robot helper that kind of attaches on top of is it the S20? I think it's the model of their vacuum cleaner. Kind of on top of ish, but basically it will, I don't know, some of the use cases I thought were kind of silly, like where they're like, hey, like it can bring you stuff. Well, someone needs to put the stuff on the robot. Like, it's not like it's opening my fridge, grabbing, I don't know, a pizza and putting it on its shelf and then bringing it to me. It is, somebody needs to be in the kitchen, open the fridge, put the pizza on the table, and then but there was a couple of other things that I thought were okay, or okay use case for it, which is like, if you can stick their air purifier on it, and it can drive around with the air purifier and just purify different areas of the house. Maybe if you have air quality sensors around the house, and maybe there's one room that has, a worse air quality for whatever reason, you can go and you can send it to that room, and it can, clean the air in that room. I don't know. I that's the only one where I was like, okay, I get it, but how much do I want to pay for that, rather than just picking up my air purifier and moving it to that room? It can also do like patrol mode and stuff like that. So it's like a sentry mode of some kind, right? Where it can go through, and it's got a camera, and it can guard the house, check on your dog or cat or whatever. Honestly, I think it might scare the crap out of a dog or a cat, but I don't. Yeah. And so I was going back and forth with a couple of folks on the Home Assistant Facebook group, and the general comment was, is this, if this was April Fool's, I would have thought this was or if this was April, I would have thought this was an April Fool's joke, right? And I think I agree with them, right? I don't know, like I think this is a solution looking for a problem. I do think it is cool for what it is. I just don't know that I fully understand the application. And again, separate interview that we'll release with the SwitchBot founder or one of the founders of SwitchBot. I do like their ethos of like, hey, we just want to make things handy and make things helpful, and we think that's important in a home. Even from an accessibility perspective, I struggle to see the applicability of that one robot. The rest of their products, sure, I totally get, like the little, the SwitchBot bot, right? With like the finger push button
where it all
thing.
started from, right?
Yeah. Like I totally see that. I mean, I've got some SwitchBot tilts and stuff like that, right? The blind tilts or whatever they're called, to power my blinds and stuff. So I again, nothing against the brand. I think like their products are fine. They work. They're good. I think the autonomous robot bit I struggle with. Maybe it's just too early for its day. Yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I wonder if like it would be cool if you could like, I don't know, like control it through Home Assistant and say, hey, like on every morning, at 6 a.m. run like to this point in the house, right? And maybe I don't know, the night before you put your medication on there or something. But yeah, I don't know. There's got to be a use case for it. I just don't know if SwitchBot knows what it is yet. If that makes sense.
I mean, make your own decision. Listen to the full episode that we're going to release shortly. And just, again, these are going to release on YouTube. So go check it out so you can actually see the product and see what their thoughts are and how they react and so on, right? And those will come on Patreon first as well. Last couple of things that we want to talk about, but we don't, there's a lot more to cover, but I think, we had some really good conversations with, actually, I'll bring up Bosch, because they were.
I was going to say Bosch was a surprising one for me. We were around asking, everyone, do you support Matter? What about this? And Bosch has like, I mean, Rohan, you got to speak with, was it the head of smart homes or something?
He wasn't the head of smart homes, but I think he, well, the way he described it, he basically owns Matter for Bosch. He reports into the Bosch Smart Home division, but it's kind of cross functional across their different business unit. It sounded like, right? I might be off here, and I apologize if I am. But they came out with the first Matter enabled fridge. And in having conversations with them, it also sounded like they want to start expanding their appliances to include that where it makes sense, right? So I was impressed at what their view on this was, because again, a lot of vendors like this, I'll use, Samsung, who's typically on the opposite end of that spectrum, right? Where they start off a little bit open and then they close it and they close it and they close it and they close it, right? And it's like, I day by day, I'm becoming less of a fan of Samsung products, which is unfortunate because most of the things I have are Samsung. I don't think, Phil, you and I have talked about this. I have a Samsung frame TV that I absolutely hate.
Yep.
It's that kind of thing, right? But it's nice to see one maker one vendor, and Bosch is not a small company by any means, to say, hey, you know what? We want to start adopting open standards, because they can totally go the other way and say, nope, we don't want to do that. But they've also been contributing to Matter, which I thought was impressive, rather than just consuming it, doing whatever.
I think there's been just a whole bunch of conversations. I think we were running around a lot in Vegas, going in between, convention, between hotels and convention centers. I've got a lot of interviews come out. We're going to edit those down where we can, put them out on YouTube, clean up the audio as best we can too. And we'll let you know when they go up. Stay tuned to our socials and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a couple of other vendors that we haven't talked about here either that we like Flick, for example, or Lutron.
Yeah, cool. So I think we're gonna try and have some big plans this year. I wanted to say a big shout out to everyone at Nebukasa, all the creators and everyone else we got to meet at CES. Thank you for your time. Even spent a couple of hours with Paulus in the terminal. Just ran into him on the way home. Right there he was sitting right next to me. Played with his Apple Vision Pro. It was just so fun hanging out with everyone, and everyone was just so nice. Open source community is amazing. And Rohan, was very nice to meet you in person as well.
Likewise. Yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah. All right. We can do it again soon.
I know. Let's see. All right.
Cheers.
Cheers.